Welcome to PINASayang Kwentuhan. I'm Jack.
I'm Sha.
I'm Betina.
I'm Pat.
And I'm Mika. We're here to bring you some lively conversations and an eye-opening education on Filipino pop culture.
In this episode, let's take a dive into the world of Filipino movies.
Handa na ba kayo?
Let the kwentuhan session begin.
Ma! I'm sorry, Ma. Nung nagkaroon kasi ng crisis sa Spain, isa ako dun sa mga teachers na tanggalan ng trabaho kasi di naman daw talaga ako magaling. Hindi rin po totoo may MA ako kasi di ako nabigyan ng scholarship.
Ano na naman yung pakulo mo for today?
Oo nga, parang may pinagdadaanan ka. Sana kaya pa, Mika.
Teka lang, what's happening? Or baka wala naman talaga?
Akala mo lang wala. Pero meron! Meron!
Uy, ba't ka nagagalit? Ox ka lang?
Nababaliw na ata siya.
Nasa sarili ka pa ba, Mika?
Negosyo o kalayaan? Bayan o sarili? Pumili ka!
Bayan!
Ba't ka pa sumagot?
Nagtatanong eh. Kala mo si General Luna.
OMG. Ayun na nga guys, mula sa movies pala yung sinasabi niya.
Correct ka dyan. Di nyo talaga alam? Galing to sa mga kilalang movie quotes because for today's episode, we will be talking about movies in the Philippines.
Kaya pala, I'm so excited for our episode today, especially since Philippine cinema has evolved so much throughout the years.
That's right. Movies in the Philippines have a certain way of bringing life in our country and making its way to our hearts.
I agree with all the things you guys just have said. Now, Sha, would you like to be the one to introduce our topic for today through a brief history?
Will do. Let's start off with the early years of Philippine cinema. During the Philippine Islands Rebellion against Spain in 1897, the first film was shown. The Cinematographo, which screened documentaries from the United States and Europe, closed after just a few months due to the owner's inability to import enough films. The Zarzuela, a Spanish dramatic genre that juxtaposes spoken and sung scenes, was the dominant entertainment medium at the turn of the century, and cinema failed to compete.
I also heard that the Cinematographo Rizal, which opened in Manila in 1903, was the first Filipino-owned movie theater. This was named after Dr. Jose Rizal, a national hero who was instrumental in the Philippine Revolution.
After this, films shifted from documentaries to movies in 1909. To import these types of films from Hollywood, film distribution agencies were founded in Manila. Manila was soon dotted with movie theaters and local films became popular.
Whoa, I knew there was La Vida de Rizal, a story about Jose Rizal that was thought to be the first locally made film. Then rivals immediately followed up with La Pasión y Muerte de Dr. Rizal, which was released the same day. Both films were produced by foreigners and featured Zarzuela troupes playing the parts. Early on, Filipino films were mostly based on traditional theater like zarzuelas, comedies, and dramas.
Pero kilala niyo ba si Jose Nepomuceno? He was regarded as the father of Philippine cinema, created by Malayan Movies in 1917 and released the first Filipino-produced film, Dalagang Bukid, starring Atan de la Rama in 1919. Nepomuceno made a masterpiece devoted to Noli Me Tangere, a film based on Jose Rizal's Spanish novel, which was released in 1930.
Naaalala ko na ata, bukod pa sa mga gawa niya, may isang American film called Cinco Passion that was the first talkie to be seen in the Philippines. There was also Aswang or The Vampire, the first locally made film with sound, but wasn't entirely a sound film.
Now that we have crossed off the early years of the Philippine cinema, why won't we discuss the Philippine studio system? From 1934 to 1941, Philippine studios arose. Zamboanga, starring Fernando Poe Sr. and Rosa del Rosario, was the first internationally recognized Philippine film. Mestizos, or Filipinos of mixed foreign blood or Caucasian features, were the majority of celebrities at the time.
Speaking of the 40s, in 1946, the Philippines became a free country, with the film industry still inactive as a result of the war. 4 major Philippine companies arose afterwards. Sampaguita Pictures specialized in melodrama, while LVN Pictures specialized in humor. Action films were produced by both Premier Productions and Lebron International.
In those post-war films, raw sentiment, pride, and heroism were all present. Garrison 13, Dugo at Bayan, Walang Kamatayan, and Guerrillera were among the war films released in 1946. Then Manuel Conde's Orasang Ginto was the first critically praised post-war film. Then resistance campaigns were celebrated in war films, as was their friendship with United States. So Long America in 1946, directed by Gerardo de Leon, was a particular kind of film about the Filipinos' liberation from the United States.
Let's talk about the golden age of Philippine cinema. This era was in the 1950s. Philippine films achieved high technical standards, with studios going into different genres and making several films at the same time, similar to Hollywood. With Manuel Conde's Genghis Khan competing at the Venice International Film Festival, the industry reached a global scale. At the film 1953 Asia Pacific Film Festival, Leroy Salvador won Best Supporting Actor for the film Hook sa Bagong Pamumuhay, and at the 1960 Asian Film Festival for Biyaya ng Lupa. These and other awards cemented the Philippines' place as a significant Asian filmmaking hub.
Tama yan. Ngunit sa 60s naman, the industry had experienced downfalls due to commercialism. This affected the content of films, which are mostly promoting violent or sexual themes. Other movies had also focused on martial arts as another key to gain profit.
Nakakalungkot ngayon, pero huwag kayong mag-alala. Dahil sa dekada din na to, dito nagsimula ang pagkakaroon ng mga nakakakilig na love teams. Ang mga unang on-screen couple sa mga pelikula dati ay sina Nora Honor and Tirso Cruz III at Vilma Santos and Eddie Mortiz. They were also known as Guy and Pip and V and Bot.
Oh, more genres were also introduced at that time. There were action movies that aimed to express societal issues with fantasy themes. A few of the plots had cowboys, agents, and other heroes as primary characters to showcase flaws of the political system, immoral acts of the government, and the challenges that society faced. Action movies had followed the steps of Hollywood's in the 60s, which were more sensible. Another prevalent genre included bomba films, focusing on intimate and sexual scenes.
I guess, despite the downfalls, there had been remarkable films. A majority of these pictures were directed by Gerardo de Leon. These were Huwag Mo Akong Limutin and Kadenang Putik in 1960. Significantly, he created movies of Jose Rizal's novels No Limitang Here in 1961 and El Filibusterismo in 1962.
Okay, before jumping into the era of the 1970s, natatandaan pa ba natin si Ferdinand Marcos?
Siyempre, nagkaroon nga ng martial law sa Pilipinas dahil sa kanya noong September 1972 eh.
Correct! And because of that, hindi lang ito naka-apekto sa sistema natin at sa mga Pilipino, pero sa paggawa rin ng mga pelikula. The government had the power to control film content and emphasize the integration of new society, described by Marcos as Filipinos' freedom from oppression and suffering to finally live a satisfying future. With that, before executing a film, scripts should always be approved by the administration.
Ang hirap naman nun. I heard that cinematics were utilized as an advantage to promote beliefs of an envisioned new society and propaganda. Nevertheless, there were actually a lot of bomba movies that were easily produced. Such kinds of films had the wet look, taking place in bodies of water.
As you can hear, the 70s was considered a really difficult time for the industry. However, talented filmmakers were still recognized, like Dino Broca, who made Maynila and Sa Mga Kuko ng Liwanag in 1975. There's also Ishmael Bernal, who directed Himala in 1982, and Celso Castillo, with works that highlighted revolution and hierarchy.
It was also during the 70s and 80s that alternative or indie filmmaking began to rise. In 1977, a film called Mababangong Bangungot was made by Kidlat Tahimik, who was an unknown filmmaker at the time. But he eventually gained recognition when the movie won the International Critics Prize in the Berlin Film Festival. From then on, more young people strayed from commercial filmmaking and focused more on society and the human being, including Nick de Ocampos Oliver and Raymond Red's Ang Magpakailanman, which gained attention in international festivals.
During the latter part of the martial law in the 80s until the end of the Marcos regime, local films clearly conveyed their stance against the dictatorship through their plots and themes. Examples are Sisters Stella L., Karnal and Bayan Ko, Kapit sa Patilim, which all focused on oppression, torture, struggle, and tyranny.
Years after, we have finally evolved to modern Philippine cinema. From the 90s until today, it seems like we've done almost everything under the sun when it comes to filmmaking. Both mainstream and indie filmmakers have made drama, romance, comedy, horror, action, historical, and even musical movies. Although many commercial movies are mass-produced with unoriginal storylines, film festivals have helped bring more indie films to light. Independent filmmakers like Brillante Mendoza, Pepe Diokno, and Jim Libiran have won awards at major international film festivals. But independent films seldom do well at the box office because they usually deal with serious problems.
Wow, the Philippines has gone through a lot regarding movies. Do you guys wonder what our cinema would be like if it weren't for those events?
It definitely wouldn't be the same. We have developed so much throughout the years to bring creativity through cinema here. Without those events, appreciation for our local movies would be less appreciated.
Yay! Tapos na tayo sa history ng mga films natin. So let's proceed naman to some common characteristics and tropes of Filipino movies. Mika, would you like to begin with the elements we usually see in these films?
Oh, let me start with the antagonists. Did you guys notice that the villain in Filipino movies usually wears a leather jacket despite the hot weather we have here? I think that's hilarious.
Right? No hate though. Maybe it's just their way to effectively show the character's strong and tough image. But contrary to the so-called bad guys, the protagonists of the films usually experience an accident and suddenly get amnesia, which gives drama to the film.
To add up to that, the gay characters are always portrayed as exaggeratedly effeminate, very loud, and usually get hit, providing comic relief.
That's so true, Betina. But aside from those typical elements of Pelikulang Pilipino, there are more interesting characteristics we can talk about in this episode. Do you guys mind if I share?
Go ahead, Pat. We want to hear it.
Okay, so one is the overused plots in Filipino films. Throughout the years of Pelikulang Pilipino, some perceptible plots are the baby switching catastrophe plot, the ampon ka lang plot, the protagonist never dies, the wedding ending plot, the rags to riches and riches to rags, the langit lupa love story, the character abuse plot, the love triangle, the amnesia plot, and the kabit plot. Filipino films in general usually go about these plots and tend to be predictable due to their similarities.
Oh, that's right, Pat. Those plots are really noticeable in many Filipino movies. That's why the viewers tend to predict the ending of the movie without finishing the whole film.
Another thing is if there's a hit Hollywood movie, there's bound to be a Filipino version. Like, it actually makes me feel sad in a way since I know that the Filipino filmmakers can produce actually good and award-worthy movies without having to make a Pinoy version of foreign films. I believe, personally, that they are capable of producing such great films with their own ideas and stories.
Oh, yes, I definitely agree with that, Sha. You know, Filipino filmmakers are really capable of producing great films.
Actually, speaking of great films, have you guys watched Himala?
Yes, I have.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Me too. What is it about?
Really? Guys, it's one of the most iconic films that shaped Philippine cinema. Anyway, I can just tell you guys a brief overview of the movie.
Go ahead, Jack.
Well, to start off, the film's title, Himala, is a Filipino word for miracle. It was directed by Ishmael Bernal in 1982 and Ricky Lee. The film's scriptwriter based it on a series of alleged Marian apparitions to school girls on Cabra Island, in the province of Occidental Mindoro. In the movie, a total eclipse caused people to believe that the world is ending. However, Elsa, the main character, witnesses an apparition of the Virgin Mary on top of the hill where, as an infant, she was found and adopted by Saling. This happening changed Elsa's life, and caused a hysteria in a poor, isolated village.
Wow! Did you guys know that it received several awards despite its small budget of only 3 million pesos and the short amount of time allotted to film the whole movie?
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It won the Viewer's Choice Award for the best film of all time from the Asia Pacific region in the 2008 CNN Asia Pacific Screen Awards. Himala is also the first film to be restored and remastered by ABS-CBN Film Archives and Central Digital Lab as part of the ABS-CBN Restoration Project. The restored version was also premiered at the 69th Venice International Film Festival.
Okay. I know you guys are amazed, but there's another iconic film I wanted to share with you all. Did any of you watch Magnifico already?
Yes, that I can say I have watched.
I guess it's now your turn to give an overview of the movie since I have not watched it yet.
Betina, wanna kwento?
Sure, I got you guys. Magnifico is a dramatic indie film by Mario de los Reyes, released in 2003. It's basically the story of Magnifico, a small boy with a great heart who tries to live up his name. However, deep inside, he is ashamed of it. While his father tries to solve his Rubik's Cube, his older brother loses his scholarship, his youngest sister, Helen, has cerebral palsy, and the expense of medicines, which may even lead to a funeral for his ill grandmother, risks their family budget. He is the bright light in his family and does what he can to soothe their problems with his childlike good nature.
Oh wow, that's very heartwarming. I just want to give Magnifico a big hug.
Same. I will definitely watch it as soon as we finish recording this podcast.
Yes, me too. I want to watch it already.
Also, just like Himala, Magnifico received awards as well. Both local and international awards such as the Crystal Bear in the 2003 Berlin International Film Festival.
Guys, I'm so overwhelmed with all this information, but in a good way. I'm so proud to have such great films created by talented filmmakers of our country.
Oh, I'd like to share another film, and I'm pretty sure that all of us here have watched it already.
Interesting. What movie is that, Cha?
Four Sisters and the Wedding!
Oh, yes! I'm sure all of us have seen that already, but I think you should share its synopsis for our friends out there who have not watched it yet.
I would love to. So to those of you who are interested, Four Sisters and the Wedding is a 2013 Filipino comedy drama film directed by Kathy Garcia Molina. It's basically about four sisters eagerly trying to stop the wedding of their younger brother, and in doing so, they discover resentments among each other. Well, that's all I can share with you for now. But you guys just have to watch it. Trust me.
I agree, you all should watch the movie. You guys won't regret it. And of course, we can't forget those romantic love themes movies like One More Chance and The House of Us. Films like these are some of the most popular in the country. Do you guys remember those movie premieres they'd show on the news?
Oh yeah! I remember so many fans show up there. Well, aside from romantic movies though, there are also some great historical drama films like Genera Luna and Oro Plata Mata. Another good indie movie is Ang Babae sa Septic Tank.
Yeah, I agree. Those movies really make the audience think and reflect about what our country and society have been like until now. A friendly reminder to always support Filipino films, guys.
Yes, and with that, we can now move on to the next part of today's episode. Our personal thoughts about the movies in the Philippines and its relationship with Filipino culture and society.
Filipino films, in my experience, often find their way into our hearts, particularly those that include family. Like, this, I suppose, is because our country places a high priority on developing interpersonal relationships and communicating with one another. Like, if you're looking for a heartwarming story, Filipino films will certainly fulfill your needs.
Yes, I agree with that. I love how every movie that involves family would really have you crying by the end of it because of how touching and personal it is.
Another characteristic of Filipino films that I admire is their distinct sense of humor. A lot of jokes revolve around play on words, which makes it special for us because it includes our mother tongue and will be lost in translation if clarified to a non-Filipino.
I often find it hard though to explain to foreigners why specific jokes are funny because you really have to understand the language to get it. Like personally, when it comes to humor, Filipinos always shine the brightest and are able to lighten the mood whenever.
Not gonna lie, I really like a number of Filipino movies and shows. However, the variety of movies here are often limited. It's like when one idea by a director comes into light, if it's not like the usual movie or series or like plot lines that everyone's used to, it's kind of a risky move here in the Philippines. Like that's where the storylines become very repetitive because they need audience. It's dull to the point of predictability and failure to surprise viewers, especially younger viewers or like older viewers who want to see something new. It's actually quite a shame because our filmmakers have so much potential to produce something new. But yeah, yun nga, they are shackled by the commercialist film industry and what the audience really want or like are used to. It really just seems like they're making as many movies as they can, regardless of quality, for profit.
This, I think, is also due to general lack of appreciation for the arts, especially filmmaking in this country. It discourages filmmakers from deviating from the tradition, preventing them from achieving artistic expression.
Yeah, to add to what Betina said, it's because it's so looked down upon. People do not even bother to develop skills or the technology that could possibly further progress our films. That's why you often see CGI or effects that are obviously so poorly made and become the next meme in our country.
You know, if Filipinos learn to appreciate creativity, the film industry in this country will thrive, demonstrating to the rest of the world, not only in this country, but even abroad, that we are indeed innovative and capable of making name for ourselves.
If you want to support local films, I would suggest Dead Kids by Mika. This basically follows a group of teenagers who kidnap their school bully for ransom.
Yes, I definitely recommend that movie. Although it seems simple at first, you will realize how this movie is not surface level at all, and it's actually relevant to our political landscape right now.
Oh yeah, I remember that the film was able to showcase the capability and potential of Filipino filmmakers. But you know another underrated film that showcased the skills of our filmmakers? Saving Sally. Its visual effects are really interesting and innovative because it mixes animated scenes and characters with live action actors. I would also like to recommend another movie. I'm not sure if you guys heard about it, and I'm actually not sure if it's still on Netflix, but Birdshot, it is actually a very pretty movie. It's very not really pretty, but it's kind of eerie because it talks about life in the province, poverty and corruption, and it actually captures the true stories that's actually happening in the Philippines. Not in the city, but some place that not everybody bothers thinking about, which is the provincial places.
Oh, and another movie that I would recommend is Hintayin ng Langit, which was directed by Dan Villegas. It has a refreshing take on death, growing old, and a lifelong love.
Okay, I'll take notes of your recommendations because I will binge watch later. But my all-time favorite, which I think you guys will love if you like dramas, it is Way Back Home, directed by Jerry Lopez Sineneng. This film never fails to make me cry. It's about family.
That concludes our episode for today.
We hope that through this episode, we were able to open your mind to the beauty of Filipino films and help you gain new knowledge around it.
Filipino films are the perfect way to creatively express the Filipino culture and experience. So we should really support them and the advancement of the industry.
That's right, Pat. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening. Catch us in our next episode where we will be talking about Filipino art.
And always remember, mahal mo ba siya dahil kailangan mo siya o kailangan mo siya kaya mahal mo siya? Di ka sigurado? Manood ka na lang ng romantic Filipino films. And that's all for today. Bye!